And hello and welcome. It's been a long time coming, but finally it's arrived. Let's do an updated version of a video, which I've done every year about emotional support animals. And it seems to be the thing that everyone wants to know because, everything's all about the stress these days, right? Let's try and cut that down a bit. So, emotional support animals. Most people refer to them as ESAs. And there's been a bit of a difference now. Now, I've moved to America and I've done that like earlier this year. So I'm going to be talking from this, not perspective, get my words out, the perspective of both countries. So I can still give information about the UK and I can give it about the US and about my experiences either way. So hopefully there'll be a little bit of something for everyone. Now, with that said, you don't necessarily have to be in this live stream if you literally haven't got the time to. I'll be cutting everything out into different sections when it comes onto the replay. I'll be doing chapters, so if you do watch it on a replay, you can just go to a certain point. I'll put down what question has been asked or what I'm talking about, and it's a lot easier to consume for you, so you don't need to worry about that. So anyway, here's what I'll be talking about today. I'm going to explain what what an ESA is, the difference between them, service, and therapy animals, because there is a difference. The differences between what the situation is in the US and the UK, what the situation is with airlines, housing as opposed to landlords, etc. Take them into shops, stores, and general all about. And also, I'll be diving into a little bit about my story with my bunny ghost. Now, you can't see him right now because he's been awkward and he's just under the bed at the moment. But I'm sure right behind me, you can probably see the litter box on the far left-hand side there. He'll most likely hang around there from time to time. So chances are you'll probably see him, or I may coerce him out, one of the two. Anyway, yeah, and then also I'll be answering questions every so often during the stream. Whenever I finish on one of the subjects, if anyone has any questions. If not, I will be doing a live Q&A after I've done all these topics, and hopefully I've answered everyone's questions by then. If I have, then we'll end the stream. So let's get to it, shall we? Okay, so first off, I do want to get to some general best practices. Wasn't sure whether to cover this at the start or the end of the stream, but I think it will make more sense going forward, and then you'll have a bit of context. So, firstly, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a doctor or a therapist or anything. I've just got a lot of experience with my own mental health and what has helped me, and hopefully, what has helped me in the past will help others. Also, I used to work for the NHS, the UK's National Health Service. Yes, as a receptionist, but I had privy to not necessarily information that the public didn't have, but I knew where to look for it. So I'm a lot more well versed as maybe the average Joe may be. Not to put the average Joe down, that is. So I do kind of know what I'm talking about here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be on YouTube. The point of that being is that you don't take everything I say as actual clinical advice. If there's anything that you really need emergency help on, like panic attacks or anything, and you need proper help like that, do please call either 911, 999, go to an urgent care centre, walk-in centre, anything like that. But please don't use any of my advice here as actual medical assistance. This is just someone who's been through a few things, right, and knows a few things. But anyway, let's get on with it. So the first thing about emotional support animals, they're like any other pet. They're not just for Christmas, Easter, Halloween, or anything like that. They are a absolute 100% full-time responsibility. So please keep that in mind. And again, going along the lines of Christmas, which it is kind of almost now. So this may be why you're kind of watching this video, because you may be thinking of getting a pet for Christmas. it's not something where you have the pet or animal, whatever you want to call them, and just have them for your needs, where you just want to pet them every so often. Yeah, you might feed them every so often, but that's about it. They are a separate entity. They do have feelings of their own. They may not be as pronounced as humans, but they do have their own feelings. So please, 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 please treat them as such. If they're a dog, don't keep them outside. If they're a bunny rabbit, don't just keep them in a cage. They have needs as well as you. So it's all a two-way street. And when you treat them with that kind of care and the respect that they deserve, honestly, having an emotional support animal or even just a pet in general, the rewards for all that are just more than you can imagine. And I'm going to get into that so much. Well, not so much, but I'll be getting into that later in the video. So, yeah, so with that, there's a little bit of common sense with it as well. Don't just put them in the corner. And also, and I'll get into this when I cover the various topics. Really think if you really need them for certain situations. Don't get an emotional support animal just for the sake of, I have one and I have them when I need them. Really, really think about it. Because if you don't really commit to something like this, it's not going to be fair on you, because you're not going to have an animal that's going to be responsive to you. It's not fair on the animal because they're not shown the love they need. And it's a relationship where you need to, it's like a marriage almost. It really, really is. Unless you absolutely commit, you're not going to get what they give you, right? So anyway, enough of that rant, as you might call it. Service therapy in emotional support animals. Service animals. So service animals are like what you might think of the blind, like guide dogs, what you might call them. Um, Something where they need to replace a certain skill that you don't have, like walking around or whatever it might be. Maybe you have attention deficit and the dog might not have that, so they may need to take you around the supermarkets or something where it might all be too loud for you, but the dog will know to be able to take you into certain situations, and there might be a variety of things that you might need them to physically do for you. So within that, they need to be taken to a kind of a school or something before they get introduced to you. They might need to prove that they can do certain things, like, I don't know, crossing a road. And they'll need to prove that they're safe for you. So they won't bark at you. They won't bite your hand. They won't run off to chase a cat or a squirrel or something. So they'll need to be able to do certain things for you and actually prove that they're going to be the right fit. If they're not, then it's not going to work out. So there's a lot that goes into needing a service animal, that they have to have official documentation. You need to get special stuff to have like high vis on them when you go out and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot that goes into that. Therapy animals are kind of the same in that they need to prove that they're okay around people. One huge example of this is, not to bring this conversation down too much, but when you go into hospital with the terminally ill, so especially with children, like for cancer patients, for example, um, and any kind of disease or anything, a condition where it's not a good situation and they really need cheering up. They need like the care, they need they need the company. One massive big sorry, the brain fog, I really do apologize for this. One huge benefit from having a rabbit, and I know I'm biased because I have one, is that they don't make noise. So they don't like meow, they don't bark or anything. They might thump around, they might thump when they think there's danger around, but when you're in a hospital situation, it's fine. But because rabbits are prey animals, they get scared a lot. They get very nervous and they run away and they kick and whatever. Now, there are situations where you can actually train a bunny rabbit to be okay around people, and you can kind of condition them to an extent, but they're really good for, like, if you have autism, if you just need a really calm space. They're really good for going into a hospital where, and I've got to put this delicately, where people won't be moving around too much. They won't be chased after. People will just want to pet them, stroke them, right? So when it's in that situation, they're very good, calm little pets where you can just put them down on your chest or your belly or something, and you can just calmly stroke them for a bit, in much the way that cats do, but they don't like go meow or anything like that. Yeah, so got to think about that kind of thing. But anyway, my point being is that you still need to have something, a piece of paper, a document to say that they'll be fine. They won't be biting you. They won't be kicking at you or anything like that. They still need to be, even though they're just being there with you, you need to have some form of documentation to say, okay, this animal is safe to be around you. So, yeah, that's what a therapy animal is. And it's not just like cancer patients or anything like that. It's like young children who have autism, um, or even adults. Anyone who has PTSD, like, if I don't know, especially like with fireworks going off, that kind of thing. You don't want fireworks, and then there's a dog that you have that is like whoa, 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 and all that kind of stuff. So and also, like, I have it as well, sensory overload, where everything is just too much sometimes, and you just need quiet. You need that animal to make sure that they're not just going to randomly go rah, and then it just sets you off and causes a panic attack, anxiety, ambulance needs to be called, and all the rest of that. So that's what that's for. So, what is the difference between all of this and an ESA, an emotional support animal? I do apologize. I've just come off the back end of a chest infection, so yeah, this is going to happen. I'm really sorry. ESAs. Oh, and also with service and therapy animals, there are restrictions on what actual type of animal there are. So most likely, it's going to be a cat. It's going to be a dog. With service animals, you can even have miniature horses, where they're going to be something where mainstream know that they're going to be trainable. So there's that issue as well. And I'll explain a little bit more about that going forward. So with ESAs, there are no restrictions. They can be literally any animal that you like. It can be bunny rabbits, it can be spiders, tarantulas, they can be rats. I've actually got someone who has mice and rats. They can be goldfish. Yeah, they can be peacocks, and everything. Whatever you like, an emotional support animal can be that. They don't need to pass any tests. They don't need any documentation or anything. The only documentation that's needed is going to be from you, and which comes from your physician, your doctor. In England, we call them GPs, general practitioners, your therapist, anyone like that who knows you, who knows you and your medical history. They know you've got a mental health issue like anxiety, etc. Because then they're the kind of people who can actually honestly say, okay, this guy's got an issue. This is what they need some for. This is legit. Um, excuse me. So anytime you go on a plane or go to, like, if you need to live somewhere where they might not necessarily always always let animals in, that's kind of thing you need them for. But I'll get to that right now. So some of this information is going to differ between the US and the UK, but most of it is it's pretty kind of intuitive, and like it's kind of the same. So with airlines, let's start off with them because that's the main thing that's going to happen during the summer. And a lot of people right now may be booking their flights now for, I don't know, April, March, and when it starts to get warm and stuff. So let's get through that first. Airlines. They used to be fair game. but not anymore. The reason for that, and you'll see that there used to be documentation that protected people that I know might get anxiety about going onto planes and stuff. All of that has kind of grinded to a halt, mainly because what I said earlier, people can have emotional support animals of any creed, any breed, anything. So there have actually been people who've been taking peacocks in, horses, and I don't mean miniature ones, I mean actual full sized horses. And it got to the point where it was just stupid. People have been taking monkeys on, people got attacked. And not just that, you got to think what is going to happen to the other people on the airline is they don't need to have any kind of documentation to say that they're not going to cause a fuss. Now, what happens? You take your ESA on; they've not had any of these tests, and dog starts barking, a cat starts meowing. They're really uncomfortable. Their ears are going to pop, and all the rest of it. So, um, it's really going to be a massive inconvenience to the rest of the airline. And okay, you can put the argument forward, well, what about people who take babies on? Yes, valid argument, but at the same time, kids are still sentient, and you can kind of go, they're there over your shoulder and all that kind of stuff. You can kind of discipline them a little bit. You can't with animals. Otherwise, you're going to get into animal cruelty and all the rest of it. So that's one of the main reasons. However, if you really, really start to look and you just put into Google what kind of airlines that do kind of let them on, because there are some airlines that are voluntary, but they still are restrictive in the case of, okay, it can maybe let rabbits on. He might be able to let the odd cat or the odd dog that's going to absolutely behave themselves. They may need proof, like a letter or something, to say they like from a vet and all that kind of stuff. You're gonna have to get them. Oh yeah, they're gonna need immunisations pretty much every time they go away. So there's lots to think about there, and it's going to become very, very expensive, very, very fast. Which I'll get into when I tell you about the story between me and Ghost. Excuse me. So what I would say, wherever you're going, I would communicate with the airline first. Make sure you have all the documentation that you need to make sure either they're um, uh, therapy, whether they're ESA. Make sure you have everything first. They can still say no, but at the very least, do it at least 48 hours before. And then they'd be able to say, okay, yes, no, there's not going to be any situation where you just left it too late. You get to the airport. Hang on, I tried talking to them, but they didn't say anything. No, if you don't get the communication from them, it's a good bet that they're not going to allow them on. So always do your research and homework before you go away. Otherwise, it's on the person going away, to be honest. Um, so the other thing you need to think about with airlines, let's just say this isn't an issue. Let's just say every single animal under the sun is able to go on. Now, what I got back to before was think about, do you really actually need to go away with them? So let me put it this way. If you're going away for, I don't know, visit a sick relative or something, and you're going away, you're going to go for like at the very least 3 weeks, a month, maybe a couple of months or something, and you physically cannot leave that animal back at home. And it's going to be a huge issue for you and for them. Definitely, absolutely, 100%. There's no issue with that. And the reason I say it is, if say you're just going on a bender, you're just going to Brazil, not Brazil. If you go to Spain, you're going to Europe, you're going to Vegas, or anywhere like that where you're going to go drinking, and you're just going to be leaving them in a hotel. You're not going to see them very long, but you're just taking them with you just because you can. I wouldn't say that's very ethical. And the reason also is, you're going to take them on a plane. That's going to be extremely stressful for no matter what animal you're going to take on, especially timid animals like rabbits or small animals. Because you got to think, when your ears start to pop, you get to hear the sound, the jet engines and all of that. That's got to be 10 times worse for them. So always think about why you're doing things. Why are you going to be taking them away? Is it going to be fair to your pet? Now, with that said, I'm just going to check the comments now. Are there any questions so far? Have I explained this very well? Yeah, okay. I don't think there's anything so far. So I'm going to be moving on to the next thing, which is housing. Now, this is where a lot of the comments on my channel from my previous videos coming from. So I'm going to cover this as much as I possibly can. Okay, so just had a comment saying they disagree, which is fine. All entitled to the opinion, but the point I'm trying to make here is, let's just say you're going from America and you're going on a 12, maybe even more hour flight to maybe China, might be going to Russia or anything like that, where it's definitely an extended flight. Yes, you have the ability to, but just because you can do a thing, maybe not all the time. I'm not saying this specifically to you, just a general rule. Maybe you shouldn't do a thing just because you can do it. And I say that because I know of people in my own life where they've taken an animal on a flight and it's been a good 8 hours. The animal has had a heart attack, they died. So the reason you're going away, would that not affect why you're taking them away and that you should take them away? That's all I'm trying to say. Honestly, the it's just a common sense kind of thing, and it's a decision of the owner. 100%. I'm just trying to say these are all the things and all the variables that really should be taken into account. Is this something that the animal is going to survive? Right? If it's like a 45-minute thing, to like if you're going from England to um, excuse me, if you're going from England and you're going to Ireland or something like that, where it's like a 45-minute flight, then not an issue. But when it's on a long distance and you're only going for a couple of days, you got to really think, how is it going to affect my pet? That's all I'm saying. Anyway, let's see. Hopefully I've answered that. Not a dig, just got to think of all variables. Housing. When you're moving into a place that a lot of people have asked me about, where it's a place where the landlord, the housing association, or wherever it is, even dormitories at universities, anything like that, um, everyone's always scared about it, especially in the UK. I'll explain that. I'll actually go to the UK first. So, in all situations with the United Kingdom, emotional support animals, where they're not therapy, they're not support animals in that like if you're blind or anything, service animals. That's the one. Anything like that. If it's just purely for your mental health, then they're not recognised. They're not recognised as serviced therapy or anything like that. They're literally just your pet. So if you have anxiety and you try to get like a rental, especially if you're a student or you got your first job or anything, it's really difficult to find somewhere if like you've had your pet for like a number of years and then the landlord is just basically saying no. Now, here's my advice with this, because I've actually worked it in a situation where it's been fine. So even especially when you're trying to get your first place, it's going to be really exciting thinking, okay, I found this place, I really love it, I want to move in, here's my money, take my money, I want the keys and all the rest of it. It's going to really feel awkward being in the office and you're just given like this 20 million page document and like of all the things that the do's and don'ts. This is what you do here, blah 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 blah, and all the small print. It's really tempting to just, okay, yep, okay, sign, sign, sign. Let's get on with it. I want it. And then you come across something that says pets not allowed. I urge you to not just read that and think, oh God, I can't find anywhere. Why is it so difficult? If it's somewhere that you really want, I have found there's documentation where it will say something along the lines of, yes, okay, pets aren't generally allowed unless agreed with the landlord. Now, I've had it where I was in the office with the housing association, not the landlord themselves, and I asked them straight, I've actually got a rabbit. Am I allowed to have him, or am I having to give him away?" And it says, "No, absolutely not." However, it states that, hang on a minute, it's down to the landlord. So can you contact him? Can you give him a call for me? I can wait here. And in the end of it, they said they called him. They went away for 10 minutes, and it says, yeah, just as long as doesn't cause any damage or no noise or anything, not actually going to cause them like lots of money or anything. Okay, not a problem. Fine. So if you go into a housing association and not actually speaking to the landlord direct, always be aware of that. And it's always worth saying, hang on a minute, just speak to them. And also with mental health conditions, if you just explain the situation to the landlord as well, just in a nice, calm, like talk to them just like as a normal human being, not just like, I want this, I want that, then they're much more willing to say, okay, I don't usually let them in, but if you can prove they're not going to eat the skirting board, or if they're not going to thump every so often, or they're not going to bark during the night, if you can pretty much guarantee that, and all the other tenants are not going to have an issue where I'm having people move out, or if I'm going to have to replace things, then I'm not going to say 9 times out of 10, but sometimes they can be sympathetic to that. So it's always, let's just have a discussion first, and then we can go from there. So I've just moved from the UK. I've been living here since March. I've had to deal with my rabbit, who I brought with me, and I'm actually in a house right now where I don't need to prove anything because it's with family. But I've been looking into, because I am going to be moving out relatively soon, so I've had to do all the research for over here too, in preparation for trying to find a place. So I'm trying to speak from here and there, but having not gone through having a place of my own here yet, I'm not going to vouch all of it. So take some of it with a pinch of salt. I can only go through all the research that I put in. So I'm just trying and consolidate, because a lot of websites say a load of different things. So I'm just trying to consolidate everything to some kind of meaningful advice, if you know what I mean. So that's what I'm trying to do. Anyway, so my point is, don't always. Don't just go for places that say no pets. There are going to be places that do allow dogs or various other things. Just be aware that no doesn't necessarily always mean no. Let's see. So I've got my notes here just by the camera. Okay, so let's go through the USA situation. So, in regard to housing, renting, and all of that, you're covered. So, if you have a mental health condition, you're not going to just be said no and like put on the streets or anything. You do need a place to live if you can afford to stay where they're offering. So, that part of it's fine. Again, one of the main things that this act, the Fair Housing Act, if you want to look it up, I'll put links in the description after the live stream's over. But one thing, all the things that I just spoke about is just as long as they don't cause damage, that is covered within this act. So I put down, As long as they don't cause any damage or any financial loss, meaning no physical damage, or you don't get any other tenants that are going to be moving out because of them. There's no noise disruption. There's no massive smell. Like, obviously clean up after yourself with them, but as long as there's no like any inconvenience to anyone else, you're going to be fine. What you'll need is a letter from your physician, from your therapist, or anything like that to say, okay, this guy's fine, they're allowed to do it. And you'll need to basically, yeah, just take that to the landlord and they're fine. If they're going to be not adherent to it, you can put in complaints. You can bring it back to lawyers and all of that, and you'll be covered. You don't need to worry about with the US. So, in regard to finding a place to live, as long as you can go to a physician, if you don't have any consultations with your doctor or anything like that, you can go to. There's loads of sites that you can go to. I can't really put any that I recommend purely because it's favoring one over the other, and because I haven't used them, I can't really attest to them. But if you don't have any consultation or any previous history on your notes for your doctor to say that you've got anxiety, depression, PTSD, or anything like that, there's loads of places you can go to, or actually, preferably, your own doctor to say, okay, I want this to happen. They'll need to do some tests on you, and then they'll do the letter for you. Most likely there'll be a charge, and I say that to the UK as well. In the UK, it'll be somewhere along the lines of £35 to $50. The equivalent, I believe, might be like $50 to $100 in the UK, in the US, sorry, maybe. But it changes all the time. It actually went down from about 50 in the UK down to about 35. So you need to look up the, excuse me, you need to look up what's actually going on right now. I'm just checking the. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah. Also, in different states, there's going to be different guidelines. So, if you're going to be moving anywhere, like if you're going from Massachusetts to California or anyone else, you just need to look up local law because there might be some. I do apologize. There might be some places where the laws are going to be different. Not too different, but there might be things that might be added in some places where they're not. Yeah, so, oh, okay. So at work, you're not really allowed to take them to work. Um, it's just a thing. Like, if, say, you're in a factory or something, it's a health and safety, hygiene, and all the rest of it. If you're in an office and you've got a quiet animal that will just sit there, it might be worth speaking to your to employer because there might be things at work that give you stress, and that's why they're with you. But you might need to ask them, but it's not covered at work because it's seen as one of those things that you don't have to do, as opposed to living somewhere where you don't need to take them with you to work. I know that might be just an opinion of mine and opinion of the state, but it's somewhere you're not really covered. As far as, excuse me, as far as college and uni campuses go, you are still covered because, especially when you go to a dorm, that's still covered in the Federal Fair Housing Act. So as long as, again, you still have the documentation from your doctor, from your therapist, etc., you're still able to have your emotional support animal with you at uni and with you where you're living there. Even if it's with other people, you're still allowed to, as long as you have that letter. They can't kick you out for it. However, that said, and oh, by the way, when it comes to living in a rented place, dorms, or anything like that, you can still also take them into hallways, into the kitchen, anywhere that's or where it's a university or college. You can take them around the grounds. You just can't take him obviously into other places, bedrooms or into shared places like, oh, excuse me, not the kitchen. I mean into the actual lecture halls. Even if they're quiet, they're going to be disruptive because there's going to be other students who are going to want to pet them and all kind of things that can happen. So it can allow them around the campus where people are like, oh my God, so cute and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. You just can't do it to where people need to concentrate. That's literally all it is. But otherwise, fair game. Which leads me on to, have I missed anything out with the housing? Does anyone have any questions as far as housing go? Just let me know in the comments. And also, if I provided any value, please, 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 please don't hesitate to, click the like button and subscribe. And I'll give you loads more as far as mental health and advice on tips on well-being and that kind of good stuff. So I'll keep you covered. It's not all about emotional support animals. I do general stuff. Excuse me. So, segue to stores. And when I say stores, I mean supermarkets, malls, parks are obviously okay, but anywhere that people go in and buy stuff. Obviously, there's going to be the exception of pet stores, which is all fair game. But where it's going to be really loud, there's going to be a lot of people in a space like a mall or a different store. And bear in mind, they'll need to make sure that they can get people out if there's a fire and all that kind of stuff. Uh, they're not really covered for that kind of thing. One moment. Okay, in the UK, I just got the comment from Bill Doobie. I believe that's how you pronounce it. No. You may be charged if it's like a normal pet situation, but as far as emotional support, or if it's like a guide dog, or if it's like a therapy animal, no, they're not allowed to charge you any extra. Um, I will tell you that the place that I lived, they didn't charge any more for having an emotional support animal. It's something where I absolutely needed the pet for my mental health, and I actually got documentation from my doctor, my GP. I also give him I don't need to go this far, and actually, that's a good point. In the US, the landlord or whoever, the airline, anyone like that, they're not allowed to ask you any kind of vivid details like consultations or history or anything like that. They just literally need to know, um, like the fact that you need it for your mental health. If you want to tell them any more, if you have a nice rapport with them, if they're really friendly, then that's fine. If it's just a case that, right, I want to know this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Do you have panic attacks? How often do you have them? Blah, 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 blah. All that kind of stuff they're not allowed to do, and it's actually illegal to do it. So you can, they're not covered by that. I'm just checking if there's anything else come in. Do you have any? Okay, got a question from Uncle Bill Doobie. Do you have any question mark about ESAs? Don't know what you mean by that. That might be commenting to the other person. Okay, great, not a problem. I'm hoping I've covered everything with housing. Please tell me if I haven't. Okay, so I'll go through. Sorry, I'm going through stores, aren't I? So with stores, there's so many things that they have to keep in mind, and it's not necessarily just about being an absolute arse, to be honest, saying, "Oh no, we can't do this." There's things like they've got to make sure they can get people out if there's a fire, if like I don't know, if you have a heart attack or you drop to the floor or anything, they are not liable to take care of your pet for you. And there's so many things that you need to take into account. as opposed to nope, sorry, can't do it. So that's the reason why a lot of people don't let animals into the stores, with the exception of animals who have had tests to make sure that they can do the thing they're doing, because that's one of the things they'll be put through. Like with now loud noises, they're not going to panic. So if you are blind or visually impaired, that you need to go into a mall and get something, and you're taking your dog in with you, if a really loud alarm goes off, that dog or whatever animal is not going to panic. So there are a lot of things in regards to that. Again, in except for pet stores, and obviously if there's a pet store within a mall, then you're going to have to go to the mall and ask them. It's just as simple as that. But theoretically, no. If you have to go to the mall to get to the pet store, you're better off going to somewhere like PetSmart or Pet Supplies Plus, where they're generally going to be an outside complex, an outside store going in. So, and the thing is, you really need to think about why you're taking your pet out. Do you really need to take your bunny rabbit, for example, because they do get stressed and my God, my bunny rabbit isn't coming out yet? You really do need to think about, because bunnies get stressed about being picked up because they're prey animals. They're kind of thinking, oh my God, am I going to be eaten? That kind of thing. And it's really a lot of sensory stuff for them when they're taken out. So when you go to the park, I mean, I'll take my bunny out to a few places nearby every so often to get him out, to get him good fresh air, to get him sunlight. I'd take him out to the garden and all that kind of stuff, which is fine. I'm not saying don't ever take your animal out, but all I'm saying is if you're just going grocery shopping where you know that you're not going to be having any issues, like if you're going in the UK, if you're going to Tesco or Asda, if in the US you're going to Walmart or anything like that, is it absolutely necessary? And I think that's one of the other reasons why they're not allowed in most shops, because people have really took the piss. Because there have been like peacocks that have been taken into airports, for example. I mean, let's for example this. If you take a peacock onto an airline and those big feathers like just go out right in, oh, excuse me. I need to really focus more on my spatial awareness. Just knocked down my little starship there. From Star Trek, by the way. If you have a peacock on an airplane and those massive feathers go out because it's panicking, because it's on an airplane and all this like jet engine and all that's going out, is that really good luck? And also, that peacock is just going to hit someone in the face with its feathers. It's going to cause a whole thing. So you need to think about that as well with supermarkets and things like that. And also young children, how are they going to be reacting with the animal? It's not just a simple case of, oh, I just want to take my emotional support animal, I need him. Do you though? And I'm not saying that in a patronizing way. I mean, do you genuinely need your emotional support animal to go out with you to the store? Is it going to benefit you? Is it going to benefit your animal? There are animals like dogs that are fine, bunny rabbits, spiders. Really, do you need to take a spider, tarantula to the store? I'm not saying this in an angry way. I'm not saying this in a patronizing way. These are just rhetorical questions. Actually, no, not rhetorical. In the comments, in a live chat, anyway, just tell me, do you actually feel? Because I'm actually interested to know. Yeah. Do you really need to go out to the store with your emotional support animal? Is it really that much of a necessity? I ask this because I'm curious. I've had panic attacks before in stores where they're really small. There's a lot of people there, and you kind of get claustrophobic and stuff. So I get it, but would your animal help? I feel that if I took my bunny out with me, and I'm still in that enclosed space with a lot of people, I'm still going to have the same sensory issues. So I'm just interested to know whether you feel that you do need your emotional support animal out with you. Oh, yeah. So one of the things that I just written down here, no, it's actually a myth that taking your animal out with you is going to, um, it's a thing. It's not a thing. Yeah. So what I would do, I've also wrote down here, speak to the store owner, and it's at their discretion. I mean, if you know the store owner, it's fine, but it's always at their discretion. Uh, okay. Just a conversation that's going in the background. Okay. One thing I want to talk about, because I think I've covered everything as far as the main thing goes with emotional support animals, but there's something very specific to the UK. You don't get it in the US because you do actually need to register your animal as a support animal, emotional support animal. But because emotional support animals are not recognised in the UK, there's a lot of scams. There's a lot of people, like, say, for example, and this isn't slander towards them because they do actually have a lot of good information on their site about emotional support animals. Um, excuse me. They do offer to register them in the UK, which is wrong because, like I just said, they're not recognised, and they'll take money off you. They'll say they'll give you a letter and all the rest of it, and it's actually worthless. So they might ask you for, like, I don't know, 150, $200 to get a piece of paper which you can't use, that you might even show to a landlord, an airline, which isn't going to be even looked at because you can't register them. You're not going to be covered any other house under any housing act, so it's not something that can be used. So unless there's something in regulation, which I will put up on the channel, when something does change with that, especially now I've got the community tab and I'm communicating with that, I will put it up on my channel when something like that in the UK goes through, because it's something I'm monitoring. I've got loads of friends still back in the UK who might still want something like this. But if you get anywhere like ESA UK or anything like that, just completely ignore it. What I would say is still have a letter from your doctor who know. Oh, that was it. One of the reasons why it's a scam as well, that even if it was still a legit thing, they're not using licensed professionals like doctors and therapists to make up those certificates for you. And also, they don't know you, they don't know your history, they don't know if you got emotional needs or anything like that. Your doctor does. Your doctor knows your history. So who are they to do anything like a letter like that? Yeah. That said, that's what I did as well. I got a letter from my GP showing it's a landlord, and I was there for a full year, no issues. In fact, the landlord himself came in and petted my bunny. So that's not a euphemism, by the way. Okay. So at the moment, are there any questions? Bill, in a private chat, can you just let me know as well? I don't think. Okay, brilliant. So, if there are no questions right now, I'm going to get into the benefits of having an emotional support animal. In that, I'm going to take you through my experiences with my bunny, go into a little bit of a story with this. And I'll also, if you're watching this on a replay, I'm going to timestamp this. May not be for the first couple of hours because there's a lot to go through. Um, so my story with Ghost, how I got him. Um, I had a call one day because a friend of mine was. In fact, you know what? I'm going to put a bit of music on because it's getting a bit quiet in here. Bear with me one moment. I'll put. It's called Day. There you go. So here's some story time. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to take these headphones off. Anyone who has a bunny rabbit, I'm going to show them this one thing because it's something that you might want to get. I'm not affiliated with Amazon or anything, and it's not sponsored, but I just want to show you this. Bear with 1 moment. You should still be able to hear me because I've got a wireless mic. So this isn't a pram or a buggy for a kid. It's actually for an animal. If you can see that there, the thing goes up. You can see, and you have this during the rain. And it also has flaps, so the bunny rabbit or any small animal can see outside. And it has a little thing here, so it can connect to it. And the reason I say that is because I've taken him into stores, round the park, and it's not a situation where you just got them in your arms, and you're not putting them into a situation where they're just trying to get away from you. He's actually slept for a good half an hour in that. Easy. Let me just try and call him out because I know there's going to be people who are subscribed to this channel who just want to see him. So bear with me. This is just before getting to the story. Here, boy. No. Awkward. You know, the one time you actually want him to come out and he's just been absolutely bone idle. Anyway. There was also just an excuse to give him a few treats. You probably see him come out in a few minutes. Okay. Where were I? Yeah, live story. Bear with me. This is the thing about live streams. You cannot edit it on the there and then. There's a whole thing, like sometimes your feed might cut out, sometimes you might have someone shout in the background or anything like that, and there's loads of things that you just need to, take care of. I'm just noticing the time. Okay. How I got him. So I got a phone call from a friend of mine, and this isn't anything towards it's something that could happen to anyone. What happens with rabbits is that if they have the first litter, yeah, he's sleeping. Actually, no, he's not sleeping under the bed. If you can hear any crackles or like thumps or anything, that's him ripping some cardboard apart under the bed. So he's having a gay old time there. Anyway, right. So I'm just getting my notes up because I don't want to just go off on tangents like I am doing right now. So I got him. He's actually 3.5, I believe now. He was born in March a few years ago. I can't remember the year because I'm rubbish at maths. It was the time where, if anyone watches Game of Thrones, it was when that last season was when that was aired. So I went to my friend's house. She actually called me or messaged me or something. She was in a panic because what sometimes happens with rabbits is when they have a litter and the mother doesn't feel that they can look after the litter, then they kill them. Had a litter of I think there was 10 bunnies, and Ghost was the last one left. And I had a call from my friend, and she says, "Look, I don't feel comfortable having him here. Can you take him off my hands, or at the very least, see if you can get anyone who will look after him?" And I says, "Okay, not a problem. I'll keep him for a few days and see what I can do." I went to get him, saw him, had him on my shoulder. He's going to come out in a minute, I bet you. Had him on my shoulder, and honestly, I fell in love with him. There was no way in this God's given earth I'm ever going to get rid of him. Ever. Bond was like love at first sight. And I took him home, had him in like a box that was like a cardboard box filled with hay that was that small. And I had him in there, and I was like on a train going on the other side of town. It took me like 2 hours to get home, where I was just having him with me in this little box. I thought, bloody hell, better not drop him. I've got like an actual living thing in here. Like, Jesus. Bear in mind as well, this is my first ever pet where I alone am taking care of him. It's always been in a family home. I've always been in a house where there's always been a pet, but there's always been other people there to take care of him other than me. So this is like the first time where I've had a life where it was just mine. So I got him back, and this was. I'm not going to go too much into detail about this, but this was at a time in my life where I had been through a really long run and really bad run of bad luck. Most of the people who I've lived with in my life have turned out to be bad or had a bad situation with me. I'd just moved from the other side of town. It was 2 hours to and from work, and the people who I was living with were pretty much drunk every night. They were putting the music on full, not just full blast, but the bass was going, so the whole place was just like vibrating all the time. Point is, I had like that and a few situations before it where there's been no situation where I've had any real peace where I'm living. So when I had, and I was really like, and I'm not afraid to say suicidal. It almost happened. This would have been the third time in my life where that might have happened. And it's not something where I'm going to get teary-eyed talking about it right now. It's something that I've come to peace with, so I can openly talk about it without really welling up or anything, or getting like too caught up in it. Uncle Bill has no animals. So just before I got ghost, I was in this apartment where it was no bigger than this bedroom, and in fact it was smaller. I was actually in a place where I was subletting with a load of other tenants in different rooms, and we had a communal kitchen and stuff. But there was other people who had loud music. I was struggling to pay the rent because of having to move and various other things. And out of when I was being paid, I think about £1,200 a month. And out of it, because I was going to payday loans and loan sharks and stuff like that, because of the interest and having to pay them back, I was only seeing, and this is before rent, sorry, after rent and after food rent, after rent and anything I had to pay to physically live somewhere, I had like £100, equivalent to about 130, 140 American dollars, to spend in a month. And it just got to the point where, what's the point? I mean, I was still married at the time, but I wasn't with her. I'd been married for like 7, 8 years at that point, maybe even 6. But the point is, I was always alone, and it's just always a bad situation. So I got lower and lower and lower and lower. So when I got Ghost, and by the way, just having him and calling him my ESA makes him my ESA. The whole letter with the GP, that's just a formality. You can just say over here. Because it's not recognized, you can just say it. Anyway, I digress. So I got Ghost. And all night I was setting up his stuff, his hay, milk. I had to go out to get milk for him and water and all the rest of it. And a couple of days later, I got a big cage for him because I didn't know any better. Now I free roam, as you'll probably see in a moment. And I was completely and utterly consumed by taking care of this pretty much baby. I mean, you might call them fur babies or, oh, my little baby boy and all that kind of stuff and all that kind of cute talk, but when you're on your own and you have this little life and you just suddenly, they're completely 100% dependent on you, it changes everything. Not to the point that they're an actual human baby, but to the point where, okay, so when I went from, oh my God, I can't take care of myself, to I gotta feed this little thing. I've got to make sure that they're entertained, like stroking them every so often and playing with them. Make sure that the temperature, I gotta get heating in the winter. I gotta get um, some fans and stuff going in the winter, in the summer, and you've got to start thinking about all these things, and your life becomes not you anymore, and you just look at it right in front of you and think, and you actually have a smile on your face. So, in that respect, going from just a few days before, I can honestly say my rabbit has saved my life. And it's only got better with him since then. Don't get me wrong, having an emotional support. Excuse me. One moment. Coffee break. By the way, while I just cough this out a minute, I'm just going to put something as a preview. I actually have another channel called Ghost the Bunny, but this I put this preview up just before I put the channel live. Just think it's a little funny thing to show you, just while I need to cough for 3 minutes. Bear with me. So that was the preview to the channel Ghost the Bunny. Again, I'll put that in the description below if you want to go see him. Also, at the moment, it's just a load of shorts, but it's geared towards why bunnies act the way they do, and how to take care of them. Because I really, going forward with the story, what you'll find is that you really, really put in the research, and you start to find out what you're capable of looking after an animal. Um, and what it takes, and you teach yourself responsibility. And because you're doing all this stuff, it takes away the focus on, oh, excuse me again, it takes away the focus of everyday life. It takes away the focus of dwelling on what you're dwelling on. Because one of the things about living alone is that whatever stresses you out in the day, regardless of whether it's family, friends, what goes on at work, people you have to deal with at work. In my situation in the NHS, having to dealing with really aggressive patients, having to deal with all that. Living alone, you bring everything back home with you, every single little thing, and you dwell on it, and it all stews up, and you take it back with you, even worse the next day. So what happens is, when you have a pet, emotional support, or whatever, all of this responsibility adds up to taking away the focus away from all that for a little bit to, oh my God, you just flopped over, you're running around, and oh my God, I've got to feed you, Jesus, ooh, it stinks in here, all that stuff, and it adds up to being a good thing. There were times where I thought I just really need to wring his neck, but yeah. But over time, there's that unbreakable bond, and you do feel like they're your kids. So I ended up taking him to people's gardens and getting him out, and it's a really good thing. And also, it's a good icebreaker if you have trouble making small talk with people, and if you want to take him out as well to the park. It's something where people are really going to start interacting with you, because one, especially with a bunny, for goodness sake, no one ever sees a bunny being taken for a stroll in the park, right? So people are going to ask questions. You're going to get kids to go, oh my God, can I pet it, stroke it, whatever. It's going to open all that stuff up, and it's going to give you something to talk about with people in your own personal life as well, because you're not always going to be the person in the corner thinking, what am I going to say? There's something that you can relate to people with. People are going to ask you about them if you start talking about them. Maybe not the first time, but if you mention it, they're going to talk to you the second time they see you, and the third time, and again and again and again. So it's a thing. It really does start to help. I promise you. And all that stuff that I said earlier in the stream about if you really just take the time to pet them, play around with them, snuggle up with them, and all that kind of stuff, it really is two-way street. And you're really going to, the benefits way outweigh the cons of having to be responsible for a life, right? The benefits really are all of that. So, um, the last apartment, which was a studio flat, which again is not too much bigger than this room, it was a situation where I went to the estate agents, don't have pets, and I was really panicking because I was in a situation where I had to get out of my old place for reasons. It was actually, there was stores that were opening up each side. There was drilling and stuff, and the landlords, to be fair, they had to end the tenancy agreement early. So I needed a place to live because I was getting no peace again. So this place was actually right on the other side of the road from work. It was perfect. Didn't really want to give it up. So what I'd actually done is I got the keys for it, but I just realized, oh my God, I can't have him. I was panicking because I thought, oh my God, this little baby boy that I've had for like 3 years, I'm going to lose him. So went back, said, can I speak to the landlord, please? Not you, because you just said no. Can I speak to the landlord? I just said it states in here in the agreement. And after like a nice little chat with him, he says, as long as it doesn't cost me anything, because that's all they really want. All they really want to know, the reason why they say no pets is okay, fine in case of fire and stuff like that, is they just want to know, are we going to cost them money? Luckily, he isn't. I keep hearing him, and I swear to God, he's going to come out in a minute. So, um, anyway, after that, it came time where I had to say goodbye to the UK for various reasons. I had to come over, and I had to bring him over. Just so you know, if anyone in the UK is going to travel to the US, you're looking at a good $2,000 easy. The pet people who brought Ghost over, they was going to charge $1,000, £1,000, sorry. But then, and this wasn't anything to do with them, it was border control and stuff, which they didn't tell us at the time, by the way. There was all these different things like charges for taking them over customs and for keeping them here, there, and everywhere, this, that, and the other. And it added on another £1,000 or dollars to bring him over. We had to take a separate flight. So we had Ghost over. They kept him in a big cage, had loads of hay with salad, and they let us like give him all the stuff that they needed. Kept him in this really big thing, and it's like freaking massive. It's like 1.5 meters by half a meter, and it was like really, really big. It was like a hutch, but it was a big box, big wooden box. And anyway, if you need to transport an animal, just so you know, they can't do it in the weekend. So if you're going to travel on a Sunday, legally, well, not, I don't know if it's legal, but no pet services will ever take pets from one country to another over the weekend. So it always has to be Monday to Friday, just so you know. It's not from one line, so it's not from one airline to another, unless you want to get your own private jet. It's a blanket statement that goes all across. So before that, it took weeks of getting ready, but eventually we had to get a separate flight. We actually was worried because we had to get two separate flights, that maybe there might something that happened on the flight. I mean, there wouldn't be anything that we'd have to do that we could do anyway, but I was worried sick. I couldn't sleep that night. Anyway, he came and I had the person given to me in the box, and he was a freaking sleep. Really? Worried sick to 24 hours, and the goddamn little thing was asleep. um, So since coming to the US, he's actually had a better life. He's got like more space in the room here. We can take him out every so often. He's much more active now. But the point is, I don't think I would have got this far with in my life with him without him. Um, it's 3.5 right now, and I've never looked back. There have been a few situations where I thought I might lose him. Don't get me wrong, he's got sick every so often. In some cases, he's low maintenance in the fact that you just leave him at it and he's fine. But the amount of times he's got sick and take him to the vet, nightmare. But all of that with an emotional support animal, it's so much. I can't tell you how much it means to me. So it's still worth getting for that reason. Just bearing in mind, don't get him for Christmas, don't get him for Easter, nothing like that. The animals are their own person, pretty much. So treat them with the same kind of respect and care that you show to yourself, and the benefits are more than you can imagine. And I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for watching this long if you have, because at the end of the day, it gets dark.